Happy morning, YouTube. Or if it's night where you are, then, well, good night. And so, keeping in line with what I was discussing yesterday, this is a new look at the channel. And this particular video will have me doing a little bit of what Nitin calls reading meditation. Let me give you a little background. Um, we've all been hyped up like anything about the Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings universe, or rather the Middle Earth universe TV show that's going to hit on the 2nd of September. And I was on the fence about it, but seeing so many of my friends talk about it and seeing so many of my friends share the link to the trailer on Facebook, I ultimately bit the bullet and watched it. And I want to murder somebody because the trailer is a goddamn travesty. That is not how I imagine the Silmarillion. That is not how a lot of my friends imagine the Silmarillion. So I decided to remind you guys about what essentially cast a spell on me um, back when I first got the Fellowship of the Ring in 2003. I was just 9 years old. My dad had come back from a trip to, I think, Chandigarh, where he went to sell his multi-cruisers. And the Fellowship of the Ring, bought from a station bookstore, railway station bookstore, came back with him. And I was a little daunted by the size of the book, but I still plowed into it and I still managed to complete it. And there was so much going on. There were so many things happening in the book, so many things going on in the book. And I was frankly speaking blown away. And then that was how I was introduced to the Lord of the Rings universe by J.R.R. Tolkien. And this video is going to have me read out the one passage that sort of hit me right here like a bullet and sort of drilled itself into my brain. A passage that I carry on my phone and read on my notepad app. Almost whenever I need a pick me up, I come to that passage. So, this is the one volume edition of The Lord of the Rings, which I got in 2004. And finally, I could read the other two books, The Return of the King and The Two Towers. And I've made a mistake in their order, but this is my video, alright? I get to decide what I say and when. Anyway, forgive my rudeness. Um, so let's just dive into this passage. And after I've read the passage, I'll tell you about the story of Middle Earth and how it came to be. Because what you've just heard is the prologue. There's some more coming. So, the passage that stuck in my mind when I read this for the first time. Bookmark from Bookline. The dark figure, streaming with fire, raced towards them. The orcs yelled and poured over the stone gangways. Then Boromir raised his horn and blew. Loud the challenge rang and bellowed, like the shout of many throats under the cavernous roof. For a moment the orcs quailed and the fiery shadow halted. Then the echoes died as suddenly a flame blown out by a dark wind, and the enemy advanced again. "Over the bridge!" cried Gandalf, recalling his strength. "Fly! This is a foe beyond any of you. I must hold the narrow way. Fly!" Aragorn and Boromir did not heed the command, but still held their ground, side by side, behind Gandalf at the far end of the bridge. The others halted just within the doorway at the hall's end and turned, unable to leave their leader to face the enemy alone. The Balrog reached the bridge. Gandalf stood in the middle of the span, leaning on the staff in his left hand, but in his other hand Glamdring gleamed, cold and white. His enemy halted again, facing him, and the shadow about it reached out like two vast wings. It raised the whips, and the thongs whined and cracked. Fire came from its nostrils, but Gandalf stood firm. "You cannot pass," he said. The orc stood still, and a dead silence fell. "I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. You cannot pass. The dark fire will not evade you, flame of Udun. Go back to the shadow. You cannot pass." The Balrog made no answer. The fire in it seemed to die, but the darkness grew. It stepped forward slowly onto the bridge, and suddenly it drew itself up to a great height, and its wings were spread from wall to wall, but still Gandalf could be seen, glimmering in the gloom. He seemed small and altogether alone, grey and bent, like a wizened tree before the onset of a storm. From out of the shadow, a red sword leaped, flaming, clambering, glittered white in answer. Now imagine being 9 years old. It's 11 p.m. at night. You've come to this point, and you read this. And what would you do if you were 9 years old and you read this? Obviously, you would fall in love, right? So that is what happened with me, and I remember badgering my dad to get me the rest of them, get me the rest of them. And this is 2003, right? So there's like Amazon isn't really accessible, and there were lending libraries, and I did go to them to look for the Two Towers at least, so that I could continue the story. But unfortunately, I couldn't find the Two Towers in the library. And funnily enough, the local bookstore had copies of the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales, but not the continuation of the main trilogy. So I was caught in a dilemma, and I had to wait an entire year to get the other two books in this edition, this one volume edition. And I still remember the day. We were living in a place called Salt Lake, and my mom calls me on my birthday, and she says, "There's a little gift for you," and it's done up in like pink paper with a green ribbon. And I undo the ribbon, I rip apart the paper, and out comes this. And I squeal in excitement, alright? I absolutely squeal! And I'm like, "Oh my god, it's the one volume edition!" And forget lunch, forget breakfast, forget dinner. I just curl up into a ball and I just start reading. And what do I read first? Not all of this bonus content, this forward to the second edition and all of that. No, 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 no. The first thing I start reading, where is it? Yeah. The first thing I get, like, I don't even read the prologue. I mean, I was 10, man. I mean, I'm still looking. So yeah, uh, book one, Fellowship of the Ring. When Mr. Bilbo Baggins of Bag End announced that he would shortly be celebrating his 111st birthday with a party of special magnificence, there was much talk and excitement in Hobbiton. And the rest, as Shaky would say, was silence. So this brings me to the end of this particular video. But there is a story about how I went around collecting the different copies of the book, how I got the Hobbit, and then from the Hobbit, how I got the other books. And I will tell it in the next video. I want to focus a little bit on Lord of the Rings right now because the travesty that is the Rings of Power will be hitting in September. And lest we forget, guys, lest we forget where it all comes from, where it all originated from. The mind that gave us something like the Balrog, the mind that gave us something like Gandalf, the mind that gave us something like Elendil and Isildur and Fëanor and Galadriel and the Silmarillion and Kelemimpior and Frodo Baggins. I will stop here. This is just shy of 10 minutes, and I will see you guys soon. Take care of yourselves. We're going to beat this pandemic. We are nearly there. This is the Binge Master signing off.